An alien world with magic in a sci-fi setting? I'm listening. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we're going to be talking about Witch 6 by Tyler Sehn. This was an SPSFC entry and it didn't make it. I didn't win the votes on my team to go into the quarterfinalists, but I was interested enough to continue. The reason it didn't end up getting voted in was mostly just because while it has a sci-fi setting, it has a lot of fantasy elements to it. And I would say after reading the book, it really is more of a fantasy book. The sci-fi elements are more just kind of window dressing. They're not really super relevant to the story, especially in the second half. So felt more fantasy, but being primarily a fantasy reader, I'm like, I still wanted to give it a shot and give it a read. So this one, we follow our main character Maverick, who is a witch on this planet, and kind of the setup is basically that it's space age, humanity is exploring, the Earth is no good now, and they find this planet essentially that for some reason just seems to clash with some technology, like their issue with like ships flying, they end up crashing, things like that. And as the few people who did then end up living there and starting a colony basically find out that there is essentially magic, and it's basically witches have developed who can use the magic, which is called anima, and it takes place and they can essentially create or kind of summon familiars, which are basically it's like letting a persona of another being like take over their body to do specific things through some rituals and through the kind of the magic system. And that's the setup we get, and there's some sort of plot going on basically where people in the power and the leadership on the planet are trying to do something, and there's rebels, and the main character Maverick is not really wanting to get involved with either, and that's kind of the setup. So we get the first like chunk, the part one of this book, because it's a pretty short book. It's more of a novella, maybe a decently long novella, but more of a novella than full length. I think it's under 200 pages. So I don't know, maybe that's just short for me. I talked about that with some of the sci-fi books being shorter, even being a good deal longer than that. But the first part is following that. We learn about the magic system, a bit about the world. We do have some like interesting bits of future tech, like a thing they used to get around is kind of like a hybrid between like motorcycle and bike kind of thing, but it has like tentacles that move and travel. So like there are some cool sci-fi things in there, but it is mostly focusing on the magic and that kind of thing still. But we have him going on and doing some missions and everything. We establish like his disconnect with the leadership of the society because his father was a figure who was very controversial and had kind of like brought shame on him, and so he's still dealing with that kind of thing. And we're going through and trying to figure out the things that are going on. But part two is kind of more of a like extended dream sequence, like philosophical, psychological discussion on the idea of self and nature and how the two coexist. And I wasn't really expecting that to happen or for that to be so much of a part of the book. And so I kind of felt like it almost felt like the book, it wasn't sure what it wanted to be. I feel like that part was very intentional, but it didn't necessarily fit in that well with the first half for me, just because the tone is kind of different. And then the ending still involves kind of some of the other elements, but also just kind of, I don't know. I didn't feel like I quite got as much as I wanted out of it. The first part, I was a lot more interested in the second part, although it was still, I mean, a quick read and one that was interesting, doing some different things. I was looking for more, and this part's just personally me. The reason I was excited about this is because I like the idea of a like technologically advanced society that still has magic involved, and seeing how magic and technology intertwine. That's something I like in fantasy novels, even if it's not like technology, but just seeing a fantasy world where technology is starting to advance and we're looking at how magic changes. For example, that was something I really liked in the Greenbone saga, which takes place in a more technologically advanced society, not like futuristic, but a more like kind of modern society, and then seeing how the magic changes and how thoughts of it. And so I was looking for something a little more kind of exploring that, versus this is really more so just kind of the fantasy story, just with the set in a sci-fi setting. And so I didn't feel like it leaned hard enough into the sci-fi to make that particularly relevant. I think you could have told this same story without the sci-fi elements at all for the most part, if you just have it, like take place on either a fantasy world, or even if you have it be on Earth and just attribute that stuff to Earth, because some of the things too, for it to be futuristic and on another planet, and there was some explanation for it, but like the different familiars, some of them just felt a little out of place, which I was actually cool with, and I thought it was interesting because you get some very different personas that you see of these different familiars that the main character has and controls and uses as a part of the magic system, but it felt a little bit odd, and like I said, I felt like the second part just didn't really give me what I was looking for. It was interesting, but it wasn't why I was reading the book, and so that's where it just kind of fell off a little bit for me. But I thought this was pretty solid, and I still liked it overall. I just think this is one where, like I said, I was looking for something a little bit different than what I ended up getting. So let me know in the comments suggestions for something that does what I was just saying, where it's kind of looking at magic and technology, whether advanced or not advanced, but just kind of intertwining and seeing how they work. Because I'd be really curious to read more stuff like that. So let me know if you have suggestions for that. That is what I have for this one, though. So let me know, like I said, your thoughts in the comments on it. And then otherwise, make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description. As always, for the Wizardly Do It Discord, if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, any books, really anything at all. It is a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.